Beyonce, oh my gosh, her and Jay Z just made a huge purchase. They just bought a home for $200 million in cash. In cash, y'all. This is the cash.
I know his songs were always very street in the hood, always appreciated, and he could cross over and still people all over the world could appreciate.
Again, there were rumors early on that earlier this year that Beyonce and Jay Z are having marital problems because they're separating assets. My sources told me, Beyonce and Jay Z are like peanut butter and jelly. They ain't never separating. She ain't never leaving that man. He ain't never leaving her. However, they were separating assets because Beyonce was making sure that her assets were completely separate from any business dealings that Diddy did with Jay Z.
A couple of billionaires had a total net worth of approximately $3 billion. Why would they take out a $110 million mortgage? Here, we're discussing Beyonce and Jay Z. Not too long ago, these two broke the record for the most expensive home purchase in California history when they paid $200 million in cash for a property in Malibu. What is the reason for their repeated refinances of their $88 million barren mansion? When you put everything together, it becomes clear that this is far more complicated than a simple mortgage. Let's go back a little. The bare mansion was purchased by Jay Z and Beyoncé for $88 million in 2017. They didn't just sit on it either. They signed a 30-year mortgage agreement with Goldman Sachs to borrow $52,880,000 on it. And given their financial situation, that was a lot on its own. However, they took out a second mortgage on the same property in April of this year for $57,750,000 this time. Their total debt on this one property alone now stands at $110 million. The new loan has a 30-year term and an initial 10-year fixed interest rate of 5%. That amounts to $310,000 a month for this most recent mortgage alone. When you add the first loan's monthly payment, which is said to be $226,000, to that, you're already looking at over $500,000 a month in mortgage payments alone. And that's before we even include the property taxes, which come to approximately $100,000 each month, or $1,220,000 per year. According to reports, the couple is spending a total of almost $637,000 every month just to keep that house. That doesn't even account for landscaping, personnel, security, or anything else. Once more, these individuals are billionaires. Coins aren't being scraped from the kitchen counter. However, why remove? You already own a property, so why that much debt? Particularly after making news for spending $200 million in cash on a new property. The fact that these are the same people who recently spent $200 million in cash on another property, however, is where many truly began to wonder. The house in Malibu, they paid for that one in full. $200 million, no mortgage, no payments, not a single dime in cash. At the time, it was the most costly house ever bought in California, and they chose to buy it without selling the barren site. Therefore, the issue is, why refinance the old property if you have $200 million laying around to buy a new one? It is referred to as a classic wealth management method by some. Rich people occasionally borrow against their existing assets to free up liquidity when they don't want to sell them. In this manner, they are able to avoid paying capital gains taxes. Others claim that maintaining cash flow may be the reason. Perhaps they required funds for business endeavors, legal bills, or investments. It may still be less expensive to borrow at 5% than to liquidate something different. However, it also presents serious questions since, if you're worth billions, why would you need to take on $110 million in debt in order to maintain your liquidity? Furthermore, why take out a loan against a house that has already been pledged as security? It's not a little risk either. If you are unable to make your mortgage payments, you risk losing the property. Therefore, either this is a long-term strategic decision or there's a more serious financial issue at play. Let's now discuss Beyoncé, as this is where people truly believe something is wrong. People have recently taken notice of Beyoncé's schedule is full. She's performing 4 nights in a row in Atlanta alone as part of a busy tour run, and that's only one stop. The tour has been traveling nonstop from city to city. In addition, she is promoting new fashion partnerships, a hair care line, a fragrance, an alcohol brand, and several other side enterprises. The trend is beginning to be noticed by fans. They are questioning, why is she working like she's trying to keep the lights on? In response to her frequent tours, consecutive product releases, and exuberant appearances, a person who has already achieved success finds this type of constant effort to be a bit strange. She's not doing this for pleasure, she. Financial strain, or at least the pressure that comes with needing money for something significant, is what this seems like. It's also important to note that Beyoncé is currently regarded as Roc Nation's highest paid artist. People are beginning to think she takes over as the primary source of income when things get tight behind the scenes. Then there is the widely circulated rumor that Jay Z was truly turned down for a $115 million 0-cent loan. The supporters really went crazy at that.
$15 million business line, I guess a loan for Roc Nation to help expand it and keep it going. It's a lot of money. And you would think, why won't he use his own money? Well, it's because he got to pay taxes on his own money, or he doesn't have the money. Because if he had the money, he wouldn't be asking for it. And if he really needed the money, he would cash in some of his assets. But he's not willing to do that, because then you got to pay a hefty tax on those assets.
Let's go on to the section of the tale that truly caused folks to raise their eyebrows. Jay Z reportedly rejected a $115 million loan and a $55 million cents line of credit, according to the reports that began to circulate. And you wouldn't expect to hear about that kind of rejection from someone who is a billionaire, unless they notice something behind the scenes that they don't like. Banks don't simply turn away someone with his level of wealth. Now, keep in mind that we have already discussed their $110 million 0-cent loan secured by their empty property. However, it becomes apparent that they are attempting to access liquidity, but are not always successful when you combine it with these two significant credit rejections. However, it delves even further. Desiree Perez, a senior official at Roc Nation, blatantly acknowledges that they were $40 million in debt at one time in the unearthed video. She claimed that she was desperate to safeguard Roc Nation since it was in danger. Even then, the fissures were visible since she didn't try to hide them. Then, in a conversation, Jay Z acknowledged that he had lost $20 million owing to the Busby case. That is a significant difference. These lawsuits consume more than just time and effort. They spend actual money. PR cleanup, settlements, and legal counsel, everything adds up, and it's not a single instance. People have been subtly discussing how Jay Z's name has been linked to various scandals, particularly because of his connection to Diddy. Things might get considerably more complicated if such lawsuits begin to link the dots or name names. Costly, despite the fact that he is not personally involved. Damage could result just from having a financial or legal connection. All of these rejected loans, previous debt disclosures, and significant legal costs begin to suggest that things are not as steady as we've always thought. And don't believe that it ends with mortgage and lawsuits. People are now questioning whether this is all a part of a larger cover-up. According to one view, they are directing funds into other sectors by means of these home equity loans. Businesses, legal funds, or something else could be involved. Furthermore, in theory, using real estate as security may temporarily obscure or conceal your other assets. There's a catch, though. You run the risk of losing the very house you used as security if you withdraw that much and something goes wrong, such as late payments or a court freeze. That's the risk. According to some fans, Jay and Bey are acting quickly to settle the matter before more lawsuits are filed, as if they were moving money around. Should safeguard money rather than spend it, particularly since legal issues are costly and time-consuming. It's giving bankruptcy prevention mode, someone commented. Something doesn't seem right. I love Beyoncé, but the hustle is feeling desperate, said another. In her prime, she didn't even tour as intensively. This is where the real argument begins. Are they truly going bankrupt, or are they merely making astute financial decisions that appear sloppy to others? First of all, keep in mind that someone who is broke for billionaires isn't broke for others. They're not going without food. Even if they still appear to have a lot of assets, it could indicate that their cash flow is tight or that they have a temporary lack of available capital. Refinancing to avoid selling large assets, freeing cash without touching investments, and perhaps receiving tax benefits are all seen by some as simple money management. Others, however, claim that this seems to be a fear-based response. There is actual legal pressure. Lenders may have recognized financial danger based on the declined loans. Additionally, Beyoncé there may be more to a hefty workload than just ambition. It might be a financial obligation. And you begin to notice a trend when you take into account everything: denials of loans, past debt, escalating legal actions, home refinances, and Beyoncé's continuous employment. Although it doesn't shout broken, it does indicate financial pressure or the possibility of worse. And it does paint a picture, doesn't it? When you add up the growing lawsuits, loan denials, constant labor, and refinances.
Jay Z and Beyoncé bought a $200 million house in California.
Yeah.
In Malibu.
They're saying they paid all cash for it, too.
Not just artistically when they look at Beyoncé's tour schedule. This feels like a slow-motion financial fire drill, another fan commented. That perfectly captures the appearance of the entire thing. Back-to-back refinances, loan rejections, costly purchases, and constant bustle. Everything seems to be a jumble, but it's not all negativity. The couple is being defended by some followers who say things like, "It's simply good asset management, everyone. The wealthy maintain their wealth in this way." And it's also true. Managing taxes, protecting investments, and taking out loans secured by real estate. Strategic wealth play includes all of that. Still, a lot of people don't believe it. They think there's a problem when billionaires take out large loans, because these financial decisions typically do not result in credit denial. Even though they may make sense on paper: dot lines, constant touring, and admissions of previous debt. To be honest, I don't believe that Beyoncé and Jay Z are in financial distress. This does not appear to be that. To safeguard what they have created, however, I do believe they are making some extremely cautious, possibly fear-based decisions. The lawsuits, losses, denied loans, and public financial pressure all give the impression that they're trying to stay ahead of the game, perhaps out of concern that there's more to come. Tell me your thoughts. Do you think these corporate expansions and mortgage changes make sense, or are they cause for concern? Leave a comment below with your opinions. If you haven't already, hit the like button and subscribe. This is only the beginning of this rabbit hole.